Hello everyone, James Donaldson here with The Contemporary Gentleman, and to support us you can buy our Spy series, link below, and if you want to check us out on Instagram, it's a good place to go too. Easier to message me that way if you want to DM, ask me questions, or I always like getting information from you guys too. Also, it's a good way to see what we're doing between videos. That gets a bit more attention than YouTube does. So, stay tuned. Alright, so I'm bringing you a video on the Salvo 12 shotgun suppressor. It's been a long time. That was almost really bad. Alright, so I'm bringing you a video on the Salvo 12 shotgun suppressor. This has been a long time in the making, mainly because I got disinterested in it, and so, which we'll talk about. So that kind of had an impact on my testing of it. So, well, let's get into it. A review to me is an expert giving notes to a lesser skilled individual. Instead, I see that I'm analyzing the can itself as well as the function so you can take note. This is important because I'm not giving notes to Silencer Co. on how to improve their product, though they may take some notes. Instead, I am telling you, the consumer, about the product and giving my subjective pros and cons. I might list a pro that you don't care about, so that doesn't count for you. Same goes for cons. So, let's get into it. Meat and potatoes. Alright, so, Salvo 12. First of all, I have it in the 8-inch configuration. It can be purchased in the 12-inch configuration and then shortened by buying, I want to say they're called rod kits, ROD rod kits. So, the point is that suppressors, when you purchase them, I believe this is a legal thing, is they cannot be lengthened, but if you buy them in a full-length configuration, they can be shortened. It just makes as much sense as the other laws surrounding suppressors and the NFA. Anyway, I don't see much use in the 6-inch kit. Seems like it's not even hearing safe remotely. So to me, why bother? I guess it does save your ears some, but when you have the ability to go even 8-inch, just go 8-inch. So I have a 12, 10, and 8-inch rod kit, rod kits. And going from there, it is a 12 gauge suppressor only. You cannot do 3.5 inch. The MSRP is $11.69, and you can do any load through it. So slug, target, upland bird, waterfowl, etc., 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 buckshot. It weighs 19.6 ounces to 34.4 ounces. By the way, 16 ounces does equal a pound. So keep that in mind. Length is anywhere from 6.74 inches to 12.5 inches, 12.5, And as I said, you can do a 12-inch, 10-inch, 8-inch, 6-inch configuration. The diameter, of course, because it's an eccentric can, meaning it's basically weirdly shaped, 2.21 inches by 2.96 inches. And the materials, of course, are aluminum and stainless steel. The baffles are aluminum, and then the stainless steel are the rods and the chokes. So, as I said, this is a modular can, which is actually really nice. I do appreciate this. I will say, as much as I'm not crazy about this suppressor, I am very complimentary of the engineering and thought that went into this can. So, basically, how it works is the rods, you've got two little screws right there that thread into the rods, that thread into screws on the other side. And then you've got, hopefully you can see when you look through, you've got rods that, of course, the wad runs along as it goes through. And so when you pull off the back, again, YouTube's weird right now. I think they just overturned this rule, but they might not have. So I really can't show you mounting this to the gun, or at least how to mount it. So I'm going to try to dance a fine line. As far as taking it apart and putting it back together, I have no idea if I can do that. To be honest, there's probably a lot of videos on how to do it. It's pretty easy. You just undo these two screws, pop this back part off, you have all the rods standing up. As you fill it with gunk, sometimes a rod, like one rod will come out with it, and the others won't, and whatever. It's just, it's tedious, but again, worth it. Really nice feature. So, going back into it. So the rods are going to be different lengths, and so you basically take it apart, you take all your rods out, and your two retaining rods, I guess, and then you put the next size in, and then there's a diagram. I'm going to comment on this. It's not very good about telling you which baffles to leave out, because you've got whole baffles and half baffles. So you've got ones where the whole, and then it, kind of diverts, and then you have ones where there's a shield on this bottom part, but then the whole upper part is open. That's called a half baffle. I don't know the engineering behind it. It's very clever, depending on what limitations they were having with all full baffles. But again, I can't. You remove it 2 inches at a time, so I want to say you remove from the front, and you do a half baffle and a hole, half and a hole, half and a hole, half and a hole, and then the first three are all full baffles. I don't think you draw from there first. Again, you would think, like, why didn't you just look it up, James? You own this, you have a manual, etc. And yeah, it's one of those things where I have to look it up every time I go to take it apart, which is because I'm going to clean it, which is because I'm going to change the size. So, which I did for testing, which we're going to talk about. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of irrelevant, because honestly, we'll get into why I find it irrelevant, but you can see, again, the manual could do a better job illustrating, but, I don't know, maybe I'm illiterate. So, the execution of this can overall, awesome, actually. It was, for a while, one of two shotgun suppressors on the market. The other one went away. I don't even remember who did it. I think it was the one that had like a rail and stuff. Anyway, I believe it was also eccentric. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So this hung on for a while. Now, I believe it's Rex Silentium has come out with one. But they're concentric, so they're circle around the circle. They don't hang down. I like the eccentricity. I think it's really smart with a shotgun. You're not forced to put a optic on it. You can use the bead, no problem with this thing on there. So really good on Silencer Co. for figuring that out. The other thing I'm super impressed with is it seems so obvious, yet to most, including myself at first thought, it's not. People say, well, how do you put on there? Do you have to have your shotgun barrel threaded? Most shotgun barrels are threaded for chokes. So what Silencer Co. has done is, so how Silencer Co. mounts the can is you have a shotgun that, as I said, is threaded for a choke. So you have a choke that is dual threaded. It has a little collar, which is also genius, by the way, because you can thread the collar all the way back and doesn't rattle around. So you can use this as a normal choke, and then of course threads on the outside, thread it into the gun, and then you put the suppressor right here, and then this collar threads forward and threads onto the suppressor. And so as you can see, choke threads right here, then you have your little threads right there. The collar threads onto. So you note how this goes down, tapers down to the can. Your can goes right on, no problem. So as far as chokes, they have a wide variety of chokes, as they would have to, because you're going to have Benelli, you're going to have Beretta, some of those, so some chokes fit one type of either one, and then some chokes fit one type of either one in other categories. For instance, my chokes are for Benelli Supernova. They're going to fit certain Beretta guns, but then to fit my Super Vinci, or if I had a Super Black Eagle, or some other Beretta variants, I would have to have a different type of choke. But that's normal of any kind of choke, so that's not really a con, especially as far as this is concerned. But they have chokes for Winchester. I know from experience that Stoker chokes will also go in Winchester and vice versa. So those are the same. So anyway, with a little bit of research, you can usually figure it out. What Silencer Co. is good about is they have a very good, pretty comprehensive map, chart, list, whatever, of what chokes are going to work with what guns, especially as far as popular ones. And I would say they even cover some not as popular ones. Now with that, you can do what you would do anyway. If you can't find aftermarket chokes for your gun, you can go online and you can figure out, because chances are, whatever gun you have that you don't know, you're going to be able to find somebody that can say, yes, these chokes will fit yours, even though they're made for this other brand. So there you have it. You learned something about shotguns outside of the silencer. Something they also have is adapters for various brands. So like KSG, when I had a KSG, I had a choke adapter, so I could have just used, I think, Winchester chokes for that. But then I got rid of it, so not necessary anymore. But they have an actual adapter. Instead of a choke adapter, you just get Salvo 12 adapter and it goes right on. I would actually still recommend the choke adapter, because then you can use other chokes. But the point is that if you have a Vapor 12 or a Sega, I think they make a 12 gauge, either way, you're looking at, more than likely, you can put this can on your shotgun. So hitting on the sizes again, why did I go with the sizes I did? 12 inch, you're getting maximum suppression. It's actually kind of cool. However, it is enormous. So 10 is at least a way to shave a couple inches off. And then, because I really wanted to try the variety for the sake of a review, I did the 8 inch as well. Again, I see no benefit to the 6 inch whatsoever. I know Silencer Co. even offered just buying it in the 6 inch configuration at one point, and then I would say not long after they didn't offer it anymore. And if you look on their site, at least as of when this video's out, they still don't, and I think that's smart. I don't really see the reason. I have actually asked them about offering other rod kits, and basically they could, they said, but it would just add to the price, which makes sense, especially if you don't want all the rod kits. You can buy the 12 inch, and then I would say probably buy an 8 inch and see which one you like more. At the end of the day, maybe 10 is for you. I thought 10 would be the spot for me. I really like the 8 inch. So how does it perform? Well, to be honest, for supersonic loads, it's not very noticeable. I'm sure it's doing something to protect my ears, but it is still loud as shit. Even on some of your normal, not as loud rounds. So even Target's going to be quieter than a turkey load, just like it would be without the can on it. They're still pretty loud, right? So you can get some rifle cans that actually make your rifle kind of impressive. Even if you're not running 300 blackout, you're running a more normal round, right? I've even heard some 5.56 cans that were impressive. But overall, you get a rifle can, especially some of your generic ones, they're not going to be that impressive. And that's exactly where this can fits in for supersonic. I was kind of disappointed. I was not impressed the first time I shot this whatsoever. I shot just a variety of some waterfowl loads, some turkey loads, things like that. Again, not impressed. Now, I didn't notice a ton of difference in recoil either. Now that said, there are some rounds you can get super or subsonic, and that was impressive. that's probably the most fun I've ever had with a shotgun, was shooting this with subsonic rounds. And I shot subsonic slugs, and I shot subsonic target rounds, and then I shot some shorties, which were, depending on which one I shot, some were quieter than others, but the shorties were pretty cool as well. So we'll get into use, but that is a big thing to consider. Again, it probably very well is having an impact on my ears in a positive way, especially in the longer configurations, but don't expect to be impressed. So I want to make that very clear if you're planning on buying this can. Next. So kind of touching on the differences again, I did hear a difference from 12 to 8 inch, and in my testing, and we're going to show some targets here in a minute, sound testing I did in both configurations, and then testing I kept it I want to say in the 8 inch, but I'll have to double check my notes. It's already been a couple months since I've done that testing, so please bear with me. But sound-wise, I did notice a difference for sure. I would say that I want the can in the 10-inch configuration if I'm using supersonic loads. It is kind of impressive just dropping 2 inches. Yeah, 2 inches can make a difference. But dropping just 2 inches off the 12-inch, you're probably good. But if you plan on using subsonic rounds, maybe that'd be the time to buy the 6-inch, but honestly I'd say still get the 8. So 12 or 10, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but 12 or 10 for supersonic, and then you could definitely go 8 with the sub. Now again, you want to like impress your friends, 300 blackout quiet, have it in the 12-inch configuration with subsonic slugs or target load. It's just unbelievable. So this video is very emotional for me because so many simps just got on their knees for this can in Silencer Co. And that's what led to my interest in it. And they're just talking about how awesome it is. And I just want to set the bar of reality. I'm not saying it's a bad can. I'm not saying it's a great can. I'm not telling you to go buy it. In fact, depending on who you are, I'm telling you not to buy it. I just want to take a moment here to get on soapbox and make it very clear that I'm trying to set your expectations in reality. So anyway, getting back to it. So yeah, you want to impress your friends, 12-inch configuration for sure, but if you're just looking for relatively quiet setup with the subs, 8-inch configuration is going to run you all day, no sweat. Alright, so getting into my testing, this is a pretty interesting thing here, and it was a long time coming. It took a lot of planning, and I still think I could have executed it better, but I think overall I achieved the goal I was looking for. Now, when I had a bad taste in my mouth, I was kind of sour about this can, I started reading some other articles, because again, I was mad at the Simps. So I actually found an article, I think from Recoil. It's been a while since I read it, but they talked about it. It was a pretty objective article, so good on you, whoever wrote that. If I find it, I'll put the link below. And they actually talked about how their patterns were worse using the Salvo, which I thought was interesting, because it's kind of the opposite to a degree, depending on as far as a rifle can. So to me, that was going to be a huge turnoff if that was the impact. So I decided to do some testing myself and put it in this video. So I'm going to roll in some pictures side by sides of the targets that I shot. Now, I did it only at 20 yards instead of 40 because targets are only so big, variety of logistical reasons. It was just going to be simpler, plus, for the most part, whatever differences I would see, if I saw any, which I did, big time, if I could see them at 20 yards, it's obviously you're going to see them at 40 yards too. Possibly not even as well, because the spread could be so big, whether you have the can on or not. So, some other parameters is, I wanted to look at it from the standpoint of hunting, or whatever you're using the gun for. So, for instance, if you're hunting, you're going to use a turkey choke, right? If you're, but the Salvo didn't come with a turkey choke, so I'd use a full choke. But I didn't want to compare to apples and apples, because if you're not running a Salvo, why would you run just a full choke? You wouldn't. You would run a turkey choke. So, the pattern of the turkey choke compared to the Salvo, I'm not using the same chokes. The other problem I ran into was I didn't have the same types of chokes for each configuration. For instance, I didn't have a modified for both suppressed and unsuppressed, right? So I'm not using the Silencer Co. chokes, because if you're not using the can, you wouldn't use those chokes, especially with how pricey they are. It's like $300, more than $300 for a set of 3. So you're not going to go buy those chokes. You're going to buy normal chokes. So I wanted the test not necessarily to be aimed at the suppressor itself, but the overall use. So I want you to take that into account when you look at these spreads and consider that in some cases the chokes aren't really the same. So also, you'll see notes at the bottom of the targets. Some of those notes are wrong because I either miscalculated or I didn't think about something. So for instance, you'll see 6-inch configuration. I don't have 6-inch rods, so I definitely shot it in the 8-inch configuration. So again, just kind of ignore those notes. But as I roll in the pictures here, what you're going to see overall is that the patterns were better with the Salvo, with the exception of the turkey chokes. And that's for obvious reasons, because I'm using a turkey choke versus the Salvo's full choke. So a little unfair there, but again, if you're hunting turkey, I mean, that is a hell of a... Well, what's interesting is I have 3 turkey targets because I actually forgot that I had a turkey choke. So I basically ran a full choke, so I guess it's one of them where it's direct comparison full to full, and then I ran the turkey choke and got an incredible group. So I don't know if it was the ammo. I used the heavy shot turkey loads, which have different size BBs in them. So that could be part of the reason why I got such different results. But as you can see with the waterfowl and everything else, even though some of the shots aren't quite centered, again, I'm changing a lot by putting a can on the end, doing things like that, the groups were better, which the recoil article saying that theirs were worse, that was really interesting to me. So, and it kind of changed my mind back to not being as irritated with this suppressor as I was initially. So with all that in consideration, you're actually improving your group. Now, are you required to buy this? If you don't like your groups, you don't have to buy this can to improve the group. Get a different choke, get different ammo. I will roll in what ammo was used for each test or target, so you can see. But anyway, the point is that I'm not trying to say buy this can to improve your pattern. Buy chokes or different ammo first, unless you want this, which we'll get into if you should buy this or not. Alright, so caveats and variables before we get into the close and talk about if you should buy it or not. I already mentioned the rod kits. Yeah, it kind of be nice if they're included, but again, it'd drive the price up even more, so probably good that they don't do that. And I did actually talk to Silencer Co on the phone about that. Camouflage. If you're hunting turkey, especially, you want all your shit camouflaged. And I'm not complaining that the suppressor's black, but Silencer Co doesn't even make a cover, to my knowledge. So anyone can jump in the comments, and if I find I'm wrong, I'll edit in the description below or something. But I don't think Silencer Co even makes a cover for it. I mean, for me, the primary use of this can would be something like turkey or deer hunting. And so I'm just kind of blown away. Now, for a little bit, Burn Proof Gear made one, but now they could have gone back to it and checked the site before making this video, but they definitely stopped making it, and I don't know if they're making it again or not. So, granted, for turkey, you should only be shooting once or twice, depending on your opportunity and how many birds. So you could camo wrap it without having to worry about melting the camo, and that's probably what I would do. Again, I'm blown away that there's no method of easy camouflage. I don't want to paint my can. I know you can, but I don't want to. So anyway, next, parts wear. I have no idea. Obviously on a rifle can especially, and a pistol can, you're increasing parts wear because you're increasing some of the violence unless you tune it. There's not really a lot of kits out there to tune semi-auto shotguns. Granted, I'm not in the industry, so maybe there is for 3-gun type guns, but again, I'm more of a hunter when it comes to shotguns. I don't even own a tactical shotgun. That's just not my thing at all. So, increased parts wear? I don't know, I would think so, especially if you're not tuning your shotgun. As far as pump, I would think it has no impact. Maybe on a seal or something, but overall I would think that there's no increased parts wear, but it's hard to say. So, and then from there, adding weight on the end. It's obviously you're going to lose weight as you shorten the can, But I didn't think it was that bad, honestly. And if you had like this on a short barrel shotgun, I think you'd be fine with it. I mean, I'm trying to imagine like short barrel shotgun with this in the 8-inch configuration, shooting subsonic slugs. That'd be a cool day, for sure. I guess we'll talk about application here in a moment. Something I will say, especially going back to patterning, is with far as the swinging and the weight on the end, I didn't get to shoot clays with it. I just didn't have that opportunity, didn't create the opportunity as well. There are plenty of videos of dudes on YouTube shooting clays, and I'm going to tell you right now, I am the least good at shooting shotguns out of all the guns. I'm not even incredible or anything with pistol or rifle, but those are definitely my stronger suits. And then long range, third, and then, you know, trap, skeet, way at the end. So, that being said, I did practice swinging one around. I read plenty of reviews and forums where some people like it, some people didn't mind it, some people hated it. I think it's just going to depend on you as a shooter is one of the things. But to keep in mind is if you saw me, if I had a video of me doing everything like that, I just wouldn't do it justice as far as my success. You would see me missing, and you might think it was because of the can. It is certainly not because of the can. It is my own inability to do well at sporting clays. So I wanted to get that out of the way. Now, moving into the close. Overall, I see this can would be truly useful for two main applications when used in conjunction with the right ammo, as I talked about earlier. Basically mount, CQB, CQC, room clearing, right? There are slashes in between all those in my notes. When it comes down to it, suppressors are for reducing sound, and in most cases they do it well enough to at least take the edge off firing indoors. Again, shotguns are not my flavor as far as tactical or home defense or anything like that, but this would definitely be something I would put on a home defense shotgun, especially probably in the 10-inch, maybe 12, but probably the 10-inch configuration. You got to think indoors, sound bounces, right? So the concussion is going to be worse than outside. So probably have it on a short barrel shotgun, you know, something that won't ever leave the house. For me, home defense is all about saving hearing. If you're, you know, SWAT dude or military or whatever, you know, we were shooting, I can never remember if it's the M26 or M27. I've shot one a bunch of times. I can never remember which one it's called. I think it's the 27. Anyway, it's a short, semi-modular shotgun, pump action. But this would be a great thing to have on that if you're doing mount, right? The barrel's not very long. The gun itself is pretty small. This would help out with the concussion indoors. So, it would be used for that, but again, don't expect to be impressed by its performance, even in 12-inch, if you're shooting stuff like non-subsonic, supersonic buckshot, normal, regular-ass buckshot. It's going to be loud, especially indoors. The can will help, though. I can't imagine how much louder it would be without the can. So, that's kind of the first use. On to the second use. So it does, I would say, help out having the subsonic target loads. So for that reason, I would say target practice, maybe hunting. Honestly, at this point for me, I think I'd rather just have your pro, which is not, I mean, I suppress everything. So for me to say that, for the amount of money, I mean, it's the most expensive ear pro, because again, I'm not shooting shotgun hardly, not even once a month, not even once every 6 months probably. So when it comes down to it for use, I kind of look back at when I used to buy suits, because I wore them every day for work. And it was the kind of thing where, are you getting your money's out, or you buy a nice new pair of shoes? And so you look at it as, if you paid $1 every time you're wearing it, are you getting your money's worth? And so, or you also do is divide the cost of the item over the times you use it. So basically, the most of the times I've shot shotgun the last 2 years is because I was firing the Salvo 12 for the purpose of this review, so not even on my own. And then I went hunting at one point, didn't take it because I used my other Benelli semi-auto Super Vinci, and the chokes are different. And then also I went clay shooting with that same Super Vinci. It's kind of my main squeeze shotgun. So basically the gun I've been running it on It's my Benelli Supernova. So it's a pump, and because they're not that expensive. And also it's nice because suppressing it, you don't have escape out of the ejection port. So this is very much set up for stationary shooting, not clay shooting or anything like that. So this is a turkey/deer gun. So hunting application, again, I think I'd rather just take Ear Pro. If you divide out the cost of the can for how much I'd actually be using it, it wouldn't make sense. That's a lot of money I could put toward bullets for guns I shoot all the time, or other accessories. So for me, not worth it. Now, if you shoot shotguns a lot, if some of the things I've talked about as far as its strengths are things that interest you, then this could be for you. Or again, if you're door kicking, this could be a good thing for you to have, or at least have on a weapon that you might use for that. Again, home defense, things like that. I think it's very important to have a suppressor on your home defense gun, especially if you have a family, wife and kids, or husband and kids, whatever is your flavor. So, yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is target practice is just, you could do it no Ear Pro, you could be on your own property, shooting your shotgun, subsonic target rounds with the can on it, and just, you could go all day probably, and I don't think you'd even be, because in some cases you can be hurt doing hearing damage without realizing it. I wouldn't even put it in that realm, especially if you keep it at a 10-inch or even 12-inch configuration with those subsonic rounds. So I know it's a ton of information, a little bit of back and forth as far as touching on one thing versus another, but I hope I kind of covered the whole thing. The main objective of this video is not to tell you to buy it or not, but tell you why you might want to buy it or why you might not want to buy it. If I look back in time, this would be a can I would definitely be disinterested in. I got a little more interested after I saw the pattern testing, but outside of that, I'm not a shotgun guy. So this actually, it's too nuanced. I think if it was more effective, it'd be different, or maybe I'd even shoot shotguns more, or maybe I'd break down, buy the other chokes for my Super Vinci and run it on that too. But at the end of the day, that's just not worth it. But in the end, I definitely, unless you shoot shotguns that much, or your job is CQB with a shotgun, I really wouldn't recommend this as a first suppressor purchase. If you're buying two at the same time, maybe, but the order I usually tell people is probably, depending on what kind of guns you own, either a 5.56 dedicated can first, or a 30 cal. Probably 30 cal for most people, especially if you buy right. It can still do a decent job, 5.56. Second can, because I think everybody should have at least one AR, 5.56 dedicated. You got your two rifle cans. And then at that point, depending on what your gun collection looks like, go from there. So if you're running big bore 4570, 4.58 SOCOM, consider something like a big bore can, especially because a lot of those will still do pistol. So something like a Primal from Dead Air. And then otherwise, so if you're like me and you don't have that kind of stuff, you really just go up to, like, I have 270 and 6.5 Creedmoor, so my 30 cal cans kind of cover those. So for me, it was pistol can. I don't think you need a lot of those, one or two, and if you got SMGs or something, again, it just comes down to what your collection is. But I would definitely acquire a few cans, probably at least 3 or 4, before I bought this, again, unless you just shoot shotgun that much. So that's all I really have to say about it. Yeah, it's going to be up to you as far as whether this can is for you, but I hope I gave you the right information to make that decision. This has been James Donaldson with the Contemporary Gentleman, and until next time, keep your composure.